General liability is a different category of risk than E&O, and the decision rule for whether you need it turns on physical footprint rather than coaching content. What I want to walk in this video is the 3 trigger conditions that determine whether GL is a skip, a bundle ad, or a standalone policy worth pricing, and the co-working space situation where most coaches make an incorrect assumption that costs them. If your practice is 100% virtual with no physical client contact, you may end this video with the GL decision marked skip and the triggers documented for when something in the practice changes. Bodily injury and property damage are what GL covers. The kind of incident that lands when a client trips in the hallway of your office, or a participant pulls a muscle at your workshop, or someone's laptop gets knocked off a co-working table during a session you are running. Not professional errors, not coaching advice gone wrong. Those live in E&O and the 2 policies do not overlap. The physical incident category is genuinely separate from the professional advice category, and a coach with no physical client contact has a meaningfully different GL profile than a coach who runs in-person workshops every quarter. 3 trigger conditions, and any single one of them moves GL from a skip to a standard ad. First trigger, a dedicated office space, and that includes a home office where clients physically visit for sessions. Second trigger, in-person sessions held at any location you control or rent. And yes, that includes co-working spaces even when you do not own them. Third trigger, events, meaning workshops, retreats, group programs, or any gathering where participants are physically present in a room you are responsible for. The triggers are physical, not professional. GL turns on geography, not coaching content. If all 3 triggers come out, no, the GL decision is most likely a skip, and you do not need to feel uneasy about that. The standard practice for virtual-only coaches is to skip standalone GL entirely or to bundle a minimal rider with the E&O policy. The rider option is a question for the broker. Sometimes the carrier offers it as a cheap add-on. Sometimes it is not even worth the paperwork. The judgment call belongs to the broker against your actual risk profile, not against a checklist. The point of running the trigger conditions is to make the skip an intentional decision rather than a default one. If any one of the 3 triggers comes out yes, GL becomes a standard ad. The cost range I see for standalone GL policies sits in the $400 to $800 per year range. But the more interesting number is what happens when you bundle GL with your existing E&O. The bundled rate is often meaningfully cheaper than the 2 policies priced separately, and the bundle is one specific question for your Module 3.5 broker. Ask explicitly whether the GL premium is lower when written alongside the E&O than when written standalone. The answer is almost always yes, but you have to ask. The co-working space situation is where most coaches make an incorrect assumption, and the assumption costs them. The operator's general liability policy may cover some categories of liability: slip and fall in the lobby, building maintenance issues, common area incidents. May is doing heavy lifting in that sentence. What the operator's policy does not cover is your client's presence while they are there for your sessions. The membership agreement typically contains a clause that transfers liability for guests and clients back to the member, meaning back to you. Read the agreement before assuming the operator's coverage protects you for client-related incidents. GL does not cover professional errors arising from your coaching advice. A client who alleges harm from a recommendation you made, that is an E&O claim, and it lives in your professional liability policy. A client who slips in the hallway between your office and the restroom, That is a GL claim, and it lives in your general liability policy. The two policies handle different categories of risk, and they do not overlap. Carrying one does not protect you against the other. The trap I see is coaches who assume their E&O is comprehensive coverage. It is not. And the GL gap shows up only when there is an incident. The decision tree is the format I want you to walk through, and it takes about 10 minutes against your current situation. 3 yes or no branches, 1 per trigger condition. If any branch comes out yes, you add a GL quote to your next broker conversation and ask explicitly about the bundle discount. If all 3 come out no, you have made an intentional decision to skip, and you know what would change it. Meaning, if you start running an in-person workshop 6 months from now, the trigger flips and the conversation reopens. The skip is documented. The documentation is the early warning signal.